Hi. Unfortunately, I have to speak with the phone next to my mouth. I'm here to discuss Chapter 25, Stereotyping Low-Wage Mothers Who Have Work and Family Conflicts. The main argument of the chapter is that there's a stigma attached to or associated with working mothers who earn low wages and don't have an appropriate method of childcare. First, low-wage families are on the rise. The book says that 75% of low-wage jobs are happening now. These jobs, as we've discussed in earlier chapters, are usually part-time, and they require a big amount of flexibility on the employee's part, which can make it very difficult for these employees to find work and life or family balance. Now let's add on the single mother role. A lot of the children in the chapter discussed had specific education or health needs. And the chapter discusses two women that I'd like to talk about right now. Natalie is a working mother of two, and her eldest child, her daughter, has a specific or IEP, individualized education plan that requires a lot of involvement with the parents. At the same time, Natalie is married. She brings in like half of what they earn in the family. So the father usually spends time with their youngest child. I think his name was Adam. And Natalie takes time when she can to help with her daughter. At the same time as that's going on, her youngest son fights for attention with his sister. Work is very demanding on Natalie. She is technically signed a contract as an employee, which requires her to have this type of flexibility so that her employer can call upon her when he needs her or she needs her. However, there are some times when Natalie needs to cut out of work and go be with her child. And it's really sad, but she thinks that her boss thinks that she is to blame for all the things that are happening in her life, and that she's not a good mother. The other example was of Kirana. She, I believe, is a single mother. It wasn't explicitly said in the chapter, unless I may have missed it, but I believe she's a single mother, and she has a son at one point was very sick, and she needed more time than normal outside of work to be with him. And when she started handing doctor notes to her employer, he was very frustrated and kind of harassed her and hassled her into, being at work when she needed to be at work, and wasn't very understanding of her situation. So much so, in fact, that she ended up quitting to be with her son. And there were other stories of women in the chapter that were interviewed, and a lot of their bosses either didn't believe that they needed to be with their child or help with some sort of tough situation or be there, or blamed them for being bad parents and not having some sort of reasonable childcare outside of work. Like, if a child was too young and couldn't be at a after school program. Maybe the child care service needed to do something of their own, or and the parent needed to be there. And one woman described her child possibly being bullied by a couple girls, and she needed to be there for that. So she kind of split her time between doing that and being at work. And that is just really frustrating for both employers and employees. I definitely understand where these women are coming from. My mother was in this situation too. I required an IEP, and when that happened, she ended up taking, or actually just leaving her job. It was part-time. It was like 29, 30 hours a week. And she just couldn't do both, and she got a lot of complaints from her employer about, being away from her, from work, her work. But she also got, back to another chapter we discussed just recently this week, she also got a lot of comments from her family, and from some people, like her friends, about, being a mother who stays at home and raises her children. So that was also very frustrating. So she had to make a choice, really. And at that point, both my brother and I actually required the individualized education plan with all the schools up until high school that we went to, and my parents both had to be there, and my dad not so much, my mother more so, but he did come on occasion. So I found an article that I think is fitting for the reading. It may not seem like that in the beginning, but it is entitled Giving Voice to Working Mothers, a Consumer-Informed Study to Program Design for Working Mothers by Davina Haslam, Pamela Patrick, and James Kirby. This article discusses middle-class working mothers, married or not, that have to deal with this sort of emotional guilt that they feel when they have to split their time between work and their child. Now, this article also discusses more part-time employees, like we've been talking about. They are middle-class women, which is, not the low-wage earners that we are discussing in this chapter. I don't specifically know if, I know that some of the women were married, like Natalie. I don't know how much her husband made, for their family, but overall, it seemed to me that most of these women were in dire situations with money and being with their family. So I think that that's sort of a comparison to make here with this article that I found and the chapter. The article discusses finding ways that work can intervene and help find that balance for women who are working and raising children. The researchers sent out a questionnaire in the form of pamphlets and things like that, discussing their socio-demographic factors first and foremost, and then it asked, based on that, do you find it hard to balance your work and family life? Do you think that a program or something like that at work or in another location could help you, a clinic, as they called it, could help you find that balance between work and life? So the first question about balancing, can it be hard to balance family and work life? Like more than 90% of the women answered yes. Like automatically, they're like, of course, it's difficult. and at the same time, the second question about finding a way to have work intervene or find a way to eliminate that stress through work, very few people actually agreed to that. I think it was like a little above 60%, but it wasn't very much. The other question that was asked, I'm going to have to read it. I would be more likely to attend a parenting program focus group on work-life balance offered at my workplace than at a clinic. Most people did not want to do that. That was below 50%. And that makes me wonder what the relationship is like between the employer and the employee for them to say, I don't want my work to be involved in any way. I mean, I'm thinking about this chapter and some of the ways that these employers responded to their employees' situations, and it can be tough. So why would you want to involve someone who's already making it worse for you? If that's, that's what most of the situations were like. One woman in the article talked about taking work home, basically. She had a daughter who did ballet, so she would go to her practices and her rehearsals, and she would also take her work with her. So in a way, she felt like she was there, but she definitely wasn't there, like, present, She was working on her work, couldn't talk to the other parents that were there watching their children, in ballet and participating because she was working. I have 3 questions to ask, and one of them is kind of part of the presentation. The first question is about emotional labor. What kind of emotional labor do you think these mothers feel when they have to explain to their children that they can't make certain events? What kind of emotional labor is attached to that? Now, the 2 questions that I'd like to ask for this week, and I will write them because I don't know that this is really easy for your people to hear. The first one is, do you think work should intervene and help these single parents or dual earner families balance their work and family life? And is it possible? The second question I pose is, are there current programs that low-wage single mothers with this same situation that are operating in Idaho? I wonder if there are any programs that are operating in Idaho for this. And I wanted to make it local because, I don't know, I like keeping things local when I'm thinking about sociology, what's happening where I am right now. And the little part to that is, are these programs effective? I don't know. It seems to me that a lot of the people on here at this class are mothers. I'd like to hear your experiences. I'm sure that you've had some of your own. And if not, and you've been able to balance that, that's really good. So that's my video, my presentation. I really hope you can hear it. I apologize if you can't. I can redo it if I have to.